these days, and some of you I've just met. Carolyn I've met, and I can't remember your name. Oh, I thought, oh, I'll come look at your name tag later. All right. So today is February 28th, and I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about my life. I haven't shared a bunch. I've been coming for like 9 months now. But a little bit about today, February 28th. Can you guys think back to the way life was on March 11th? March 11th. Oh, wait a minute. Did I mention I meant March 11th, 2009? Anybody think back that far? Let me tell you what life was like for me. March 11th, 2009. At that time, okay, buddy, let me move you forward so she can speak. Right? Okay. Yeah. Wait a minute. Come on, get by me, babe. Hey, you're good. You got a driver. All right. So, March 11, 2009, my life was perfect. Let me tell you why my life was perfect. I had a wife. I had these 4 children. We lived in Jacksonville, Florida, sunny Jacksonville, Florida. I am a Florida Gator fan. I think some of you guys might know that. And so I was just 75 miles away from the University of Florida where I could go to games whenever I wanted. I was working at this place called St. John and Partners. It's an ad agency. It's been called one of the best places to work in the country. I worked there. I started out as a writer. I got promoted to senior writer. I got moved up to creative group head. We would go on productions and travel. I'd go to New York and Los Angeles to make radio commercials. I'd eat at these fancy restaurants and the client would pay for it. I mean, that life was good, right? And then on the home front, let me tell you, on the home front, in August the year before, within just a few days from each other, we finalized the adoption of our daughter. You've heard me talk about we finalized adoption, and we closed on a house. A new house, a nice big 5-bedroom, 3.5-bath house. I was so happy to be providing this for my family. Life was great. On March 11th, 2009, and then March 12th, I walked into the office and I got laid off. I got laid off as part of the big global economic meltdown, but I got laid off from my job with about 10% of the workforce. And it was kind of devastating for me because I didn't plan on leaving there. I liked what I did. And so my world was reeling a little bit. And a few weeks later, we had spring break. We already had a trip to Disney World planned and paid for spring break. So we went to Disney World. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to Disney World, but let me tell you something. Disney World at spring breaks, one thing for sure, you're going to be standing in lines. Right? There are long lines at Disney World. You hate waiting for lines because you pay so much to be there. But we had a good time. We tried to, get our heads straight. I came back a few weeks later. I had this idea. Now, I don't know if you've heard of it. There's things called smartphones, like iPhone. You guys have heard of those things, right? Well, these phones, these new smartphones that had applications on them, and I got this great idea. I said, what if I could create an iPhone app that would tell you how long the wait was in lines for rides at Disney World, like, Space Mountain and stuff like that. I said, I bet people will pay good money for that. I'll do that. That's what I'm going to do. That's my dream now. I'm going to do this. So I get together and I come up with some designs and some plans, and I hire these people to write the code, and I'm going to have iPhone's app, and it's going to be called Wait Times, Magic Kingdom Edition. Wait Times, Epcot. And so this is my plan, and I pay them thousands of dollars to create this. And let me tell you how it works. So if you want an app to sell in the iPhone store, or excuse me, from the app store, what you do is you submit it, and then you wait for them to approve the app, and then it comes up. So every day I'm checking. Every day I'm checking to see is my Wait Times Magic Kingdom Edition is. And then one morning I get up and I check the app store, and look what I see. It says Walt Disney World Wait Times. I'm like, oh, they got the name of my app wrong. But I look closer, and it wasn't my app. Somebody else had the same idea and got to the store. Meanwhile, I've been doing a PR push. I've been talking to newspapers and TV stations, and I'm devastated because now somebody else has got to the store before me. And I'm so devastated. I remember where I was. I told my kids, all right, I've got to go for a walk. So I left the 4 of them at home, and I went and walking, and my hands were shaking. I was like, God, what's going on? I don't understand what's going on. And when I get back, it turns out that while I was gone, there came a knock at the door. It was from somebody from DCF, the Department of Children's and Family, coming to talk to us. Somebody had called and reported us to the Department of Children and Families, probably because our little rambunctious 2-year-old can reach up and unlock the door, and she'd gotten out a couple of times. So not only was I crushed that somebody else got to the park before, got to the app store with my app before me, now we're being reported as bad parents. So I'm devastated, and I go along, I'm like, all right, I've got to do something, and I ended up spending a lot of time in the parks that summer trying to promote the app, and I ended up changing the name. I changed the name to Weight Watcher. Now, hear what I did there. Wait, W-A-I-T, like you wait in line, so I called it Weight Watchers. I thought, this is pretty fun. And so I got some sales out of that, and I'm going along, and that goes on for a few months, and I'm not really making a lot of money off of it, trying to break it even, I'm still behind. And then Terry and I went on this trip to celebrate our 20th anniversary. We went on a trip, and I remember opening up my laptop to read my email, and it turns out a cease and desist order had come from the diet company, Weight Watchers. They thought that my name was too much like theirs, and they didn't want me using that name. And then at that moment, I was like, well, I can fight this. I might win, I might lose, but I guess I just have to give up. And at that moment, it was like my dream died. I was like crushed. I thought, this is my path forward, and here it's gone. It's gone. So I want to ask you this morning, what do you do when your dreams evaporate? Right? What do you do when life disappoints you and when despair starts to set in? I want to take a brief look this morning to survey the life of one person in the Bible who knew something about dreams. His name is Joseph. And I want to try to draw 4 things out of his life that maybe everyone in this room, including myself, can learn from and be inspired by. So the story of Joseph starts in the book of Genesis. Now, I'm just going to quickly review about 15 chapters, or I'm going to kind of tell it my own way. Now, Joseph's father was Jacob. He had 10 older brothers, all right? Now, Joseph had this thing with dreams. If you know the story, he had dreams. And one of the dreams he had, he pictured that this grain of stalk, and then he had these 10 grains of stalk around him, which represented his brothers, right? And they were bowing down to his stalk. And then in this other dream, he pictures the stars and the moon and the sun all bowing down to him. And his brothers, they're kind of offended that he would say that, because it's like, what, are we all gonna bow down to you? But that's the dreams he had. He didn't ask for those dreams; they just came to him, right? And he was kind of a favorite son. I mean, he was the youngest of these 11 boys. He ended up with a younger brother, but he's the youngest, and his dad is so happy that this child was born in his old age. He gives him a really nice coat, nice long coat. Today it would be like a really, $250 North Face jacket or something, right? So it's a really nice jacket he's got on, and it's colorful. And this is his life. And you couldn't blame Joseph after having those dreams if he thought, you know what, I'm probably going to end up leading my family somehow. My dad's probably going to give over the family business to us, shepherding, but that's not what happens. That's not what happens. What happens to him, the 10 brothers are out watching the sheep one day, and he goes out to them, and they see, look at that dreamer. He makes me sick. And they decide they're going to catch him. They catch him, and they throw him in this pit out in the desert, out in the wilderness, and they rip his jacket off of him. He's got that nice, remember that really nice North Face jacket? They rip that off of him, and they're thinking about killing him, and one of the brothers said, no, we can't kill him. Well, what are we going to do? About that time, here come the slave traders. And so they sell him into slavery, and then they go lie to their dad about that coat. They tear apart the North Face jacket, put some goat's blood on it, and they show it to their dad. Meanwhile, where's Joseph? Joseph is on his way to Egypt. And he goes to Egypt, he gets sold to a guy named Potiphar. Now, Potiphar is a very important official in the government of Egypt. And Potiphar puts this guy to work. Now, you would not blame Joseph if he just kind of folded his arms and said, man, I'm going to do as little as I can do, because I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be a slave. My father loved me, my brothers had no right to do that, but instead, he does not act that way. He gets to work. He knows what it's like to have a lot of resources that have to be managed. So he gets to work, and he turns out to be so trustworthy. Excuse me. Potiphar puts him in charge of the house. And so he's over all the other slaves. He manages the resources, what's coming into the house, what's going out, all that. And he really catches the eye of Potiphar, who realizes, hey, he's doing pretty good. That's not the only person's eye he catches, though. Potiphar's wife. You know what I'm talking about. You know these type of women, don't you? Today we call them a cougar. Because she's walking around, she's a little older. She sees Joseph coming along. She's like, I want some of that. I'm sorry, look, it's in the Bible, all right? Sometimes the Bible isn't G, it's PG-13, all right? And Caden back there, don't y'all worry about him. He's 16 years old. He can handle PG-13, all right? So she actually goes up to Joseph and is like, come on, come to bed with me. I want to sleep with you. And he's like, no, I cannot do that. I would dishonor your husband who's been so good to me. I can't do it. And she's like constantly. Finally, one day she catches him alone. And she catches him alone and actually takes hold of the servant's cloak that he's wearing. And like he does one of these 360s to get out of it, And he leaves the jacket there because he knows he can't stay in the room with this woman, right? And so he runs off. Well, y'all heard this phrase, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Y'all know that phrase, right? Well, this woman screams bloody murder, only she doesn't scream bloody murder, she screams rape. She accuses him of doing this thing. And so Potiphar hears about it. And Potiphar could have had him killed, but I think Potiphar kind of knows what kind of wife he's got. So instead what he does is he throws Joseph in prison, down in the dungeon. Now listen, if that was you or me, at that point, you'd be thinking, man, I don't deserve to be here. I'm unjustly accused. It's not right. I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to get by. But that's not what he does. What he does is he gets to work. He shows that he's trustworthy. He shows that he's diligent. He shows that he's faithful. And because he's those things, the jailer realizes, you know what? I can put him in charge. And so all of a sudden, now Joseph is in charge of the resources that come in and keeping the place clean and having spaces for everybody. He's put in charge of this. And if you're Joseph, you might have thought, those dreams I had where I'm in charge of things, maybe this is what it was. Maybe I'm going to be in charge of a jail. That's what life is going to be like. He didn't know. He had dreams. He didn't know how to interpret them. But then, a few years later, we don't know how many, 2 new prisoners come in. These are special prisoners because they used to work for the Pharaoh. That's the king of Egypt, right? They used to work for Pharaoh. One was a cupbearer. So that's the guy who tasted wine, kept Pharaoh supplied with the wine. And the other was the baker. I call him the Panera bread man. Y'all know Paneras, right? They got some good stuff, right? So there's 2 of them there. They've done something to displease the Pharaoh. We don't know what it was, but they have bad dreams while they're there. And they're upset because they're bad dreams. And so Joseph's like, well, God helps me with dreams. So tell me your dreams. I'll try to help you. So the cupbearer says, all right, well, here's my dream. I got these 3 clusters of grape. I squeeze them out. I give them to the Pharaoh. I don't know what this means. It bothers me. And Joseph says, well, listen, I'm going to tell you the interpretation, but I want you to remember me, okay? Remember me when you go back to Pharaoh, because what this means is, in 3 days' time, you're going to be restored to your old position. And the baker, the Panera bread man is like, oh, it's a good interpretation. Let me tell him my dream. So he tells Joseph, well, I had this basket full of bread, and I was like carrying it on my head, like I usually do. And these crows, they come down and they start eating all the bread in my 3 baskets of bread. And Joseph's like, he said, you have your life insurance paid up because things are not looking good for you. Because what this means is in 3 days you're going to be killed by Pharaoh. And the thing you saw, that was the birds. That was the birds eating up your grain. So I'm sorry about that. And sure enough, I told you it's PG-13, right? This is not G. This is not for kids. So in 3 days' time, sure enough, it happens. And the cupbearer gets taken back to Pharaoh, and the Panera bread gets executed. And you got to think that Joseph's thinking, oh, I see it now. I've been here, but I know how to interpret dreams. Now this person's going to plead my case for me. This is how I'm going to get out. He's going to tell the Pharaoh, and any day now, I'm going to get out of prison. Any day now. It's just going to happen. Any day. And any day comes and goes, and it comes and goes, and comes and goes. And it becomes clear to Joseph he's been forgotten. Now at that point, he could fold his arms. He'd become a rebellious prisoner. He could cause problems, but he doesn't. He just keeps doing what he's good at doing. He He manages the people. He manages the resources they have. And then 2 years later, Pharaoh has some dreams. He's got a couple of dreams that bother him. In one dream, he's got these fat cows coming out of the river, and they're eaten up by these skinny, ugly, sickly cows. And in this other dream, there's these beautiful heads of grain. Now, I don't know if you've ever been through America's heartland when the amber waves of grain is blowing. It's beautiful. Well, he's got that. He sees 7 of those, but then there's 7 sickly, mildew pieces of grain that eat up those heads of grain. And by the way, that would freak me out because I've seen cows eat things, I've never seen grain eat other grain. That's just a little weird. And he can't figure it out, so he goes to his wise men and his council. He's like, what does this mean? And you know what they say? They're saying, hey, we don't know what it means. And secretly they're like, it sounds like bad news, and I ain't going to tell Pharaoh no bad news, you know what I'm saying? So they don't know what to do. And right about this time, who's standing there? Can I borrow this? Can I borrow this? Here he is. Here's the cupbearer. And he's like, I forgot about the guy in prison. And he says, Pharaoh, about 2 years ago, you were mad at me. You were mad at the Panera Bread man. You put us in jail. We had dreams. And there's a Hebrew there that can interpret the dreams. You need to bring him here. He'll help you out. So sure enough, Pharaoh brings Joseph in. Joseph's cleaned up. He comes in and stands before him. And Pharaoh says, so I hear you can interpret dreams. And what does Joseph say? He says, that's right, I'm your dream master. You come to the right place, baby. No, he doesn't say that. He deflects. He says, no, I don't give the interpretation, but God will give the interpretation. Tell me your dream. So Pharaoh tells him the dream, and Joseph says, hey, look, he's giving you the same dream twice because God's confirming what's going to happen. He says, here's what it means. The 7 fat cows, the 7 grains, that means you're going to have 7 great years. Bumper crops, you're going to have a lot. But here's the bad thing. Following that 7 years, there's going to be 7 years of drought and famine like you've never seen. And so here's what you need to do, Pharaoh. During that first 7 years, you need to create a warehouse system, and you need to tax people and bring in food so there'll be enough food that will last through the following 7 years. So he not only tells them what the problem is, he tells them what the solution is. You know why? What has Joseph been doing all his life? He's been managing people and resources. He knows how to manage people and resources. So he's not just the bearer of bad news, he's the bearer of the solution. And you know what Pharaoh says? Pharaoh says, can we find anyone better to do this than Joseph? And you know what his counselors are saying? The counselors are like, oh no, we can't. Go ahead, hire the ex-con. Great idea. No, they can't contradict the Pharaoh, right? So here's what he does. He said, come here, Joseph. He takes that servant robe that he's been wearing, takes that off. He puts, let me read what the scripture says. It says, the Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's ring. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a chain around his neck. By the way, he also gave him a little arm candy. He got to marry the high priest's hot smoking daughter. So now he's totally set up. He's on the inside right now, right? So that's what he does. He goes out and he starts to set up. And he sets up a vast system of big warehouses. He taxes people. He's able to take 20% right off the top, and people still have enough to eat. And sure enough, after the 7 years of plenty, starts 7 years of famine, and it's bad. It's bad. People have to start going into the warehouses to get things. And guess what? The famine doesn't just happen in Egypt. It happens back in Palestine, where his brothers and father and mother are. And so guess what happens? The 10 brothers end up coming, and they come and they stand before Joseph to ask him, say, we got money, we got silver, we want to give you some silver so that we can get some food and go feed our families. And they don't recognize Joseph. Now, why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose they don't recognize Joseph? Well, I'm going to give you something to think about. If you lived in some place 20 or 30 years and you became the prime minister of a country, don't you think you would speak that country's language? Don't you think you would dress like they dressed in that country? He probably had a shaved head, a wig, spoke that language. He didn't look anything like the kid in the North Face jacket that they threw down in that pit in the desert 30 years before. But he knows it's them. He asked them. They make up a story about their son, their brother having been killed by wild beasts, which was not true. They had sold him into slavery, and eventually Joseph says, hey, it's me. Is our father alive? Bring the whole family. We're gonna be saved here. So they can hardly believe it, but they go get Jacob, and they get the younger brother Benjamin. They bring them all back, and it's a big family reunion. He sets them up in the best part of Egypt, and it's good, man. It's going to be real good. And sure enough, they're able to be saved through this. And then Jacob dies, and don't you know what those brothers are like? They're like, oh man, our father's dead. Now Joseph maybe he was waiting to take his revenge. And so they come to him and they're like, oh, Joseph, please, we'll be your slaves. Just don't hurt us. Here's what Joseph has to say. He says, am I in the place of God? You intended me harm, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. That, in a nutshell, is Joseph's story, and I want you to get 4 real quick, real simple things out of it, all right? First of all, now think about your own dreams, all right? Think about your own lives. Some of y'all are sitting here, you'd rather be sitting home, or you'd rather be doing something else. Some of you have been afflicted by things like stroke and certain kind of diseases and stuff like that. You'd rather not have that. I get it. Totally. And I'm sure Joseph would rather not have gone to prison. But let's see what we can learn from this. First of all, disappointment is a depth perception issue. Right? Disappointment is a depth perception issue. What do I mean by that? You know what depth perception is? It's kind of hard to tell what's close, what's far away. Here's what I'm trying to say by this. Sometimes we can't see what God is doing because we know what we want. What we want is right here. And we're looking right here, and we don't see what we want. And meanwhile, God is right over here, and He's doing something, but we can't see it because what we're looking for, because the way we think things should be, we think it should be just so, and we're focused, and we can't see it. Disappointment is a depth perception issue. The young people today have this phrase. It's called photobomb. You ever heard photobomb? You know that phrase? Here's what that means. It's like if I'm taking a picture. All right, I'm taking a picture of me and you. If this girl over here in the background makes a funny face and waves, right? That's what a photobomb is. Let me tell you right now, God is trying to photobomb your life in ways that you're not even aware of. He's active, He's busy, He's involved, and He is interested and invested in you. He's trying to photobomb your life. You can't see it because you got a depth perception issue because you think, oh, this is the way it needs to be. I think if God was, God the way I imagined, this is what it would be. Disappointment is a depth perception issue. Second point I want to make. There's going to be a lot of D's in what I'm saying. Listen for the D words, all right? What seems like a detour to you is actually just a detail in God's great masterpiece. All right? What seems like a detour is actually just a detail in God's great masterpiece. I want you to just think about Joseph for a moment. He starts out very young. He has these dreams. Clearly, he's going to be a leader somehow, some way. He's going to be a leader of his family somehow, some way. Do you think, in his mind, could he have imagined, all right, the very first thing that needs to happen is my brothers need to almost kill me. That's the way. That's the first step. And then the second step, after they almost kill me, they need to sell me into slavery. That's the path I think I need to take in order to be leader to the family. No! I wouldn't think that. That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy to think that. But God knew what He was doing. God knew the path that He was taking. And it seemed like a detour. Oh, I'm going to be a leader. Oh, no, I'm going over here. In reality, it's a detail. Y'all ever heard the Mona Lisa? The painting, the Mona Lisa? Leonardo da Vinci, right? Is that Leonardo da Vinci? I guarantee, if you will look close enough, if you got up close, really close, and looked at a small enough piece, you would say, oh gosh, this painter, they've got a mess here. It doesn't look like anything. It's just 2 smudges of paint. This person doesn't know what they're doing. It looks like a mistake, but that mistake is actually a detail and a part of a grander masterpiece that God is painting in your life if you'll let Him, if you'll be a part of it, if you'll do what you need to do. In fact, I want to get to the third point, and it's this. Do whatever God has designed you to do wherever He deposits you. Let me say that again. do what He's designed you to do, wherever He deposits you. Joseph grew up in a family of shepherds. They had to figure out how to protect the sheep, how to care for the sheep, how to get them the food they needed, the pastures they had to manage. He grew up managing people and resources, and guess what? That's what he did, and because he did that, he became prime minister in Egypt in a time when they needed somebody that had his leadership skills. Each one of you in here has knowledge that I do not have. You have relationships that I do not have. You have life experiences that I have not had. Each one of you is uniquely qualified to be a part of God's plan, a part of God's ministry in the world today. The question is, are you living your life in standby mode? You understand what I mean by standby mode? Hang on, I'm going to come over here for a second. So, when you have like tape players, CD players, they'll have like fast forward, they'll have reverse, they'll have play, and they'll have standby mode. Standby is not actually playing. It's on, but it's not playing. It's like being paused. So what I'm trying to tell you to do is figure out, look around, say, where can I be used? How could God possibly be used? How am I gifted? What are my talents? What are my passions? What are my experiences? How can I speak into the life of the person next to me? What about people? Y'all come here like maybe every day, maybe 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 2 days a week. I don't know what it is. But all around you, you got people, you can bless these people's lives. And vice versa. Am I right? Yeah. You have neighbors where you live. You have children and family members in your life that need your experiences and your love and your heart and your passion. Do whatever you've been designed to do, whatever God deposits you. And the fourth point I want to bring to you is that you have dreams for your life, right? You have dreams. I want you to know that God has a design for your life. You have dreams for your life, and God has a design. And listen, I love that you have dreams. If you have dreams, that's great. That's awesome. But I want you to see that God has a design and a pattern for your life. And we see that in Joseph's life. Joseph is a pattern and a foreshadowing of Jesus. All right? Jesus is the greater Joseph. I want you to think about Joseph just for a second. What do we say about him? He's the favorite son. Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. He was despised by his own brothers. Jesus faced constant persecution from the religious authorities in Judaism. He was unjustly accused. Joseph was. Jesus was sent to the cross. He was accused of saying all manner of things that were not true about him. He was assigned a place with the criminals. Jesus was crucified on the cross. He was put down. Joseph was put in a prison, probably a dungeon beneath the earth. Jesus was put in a tomb for 3 days. Jesus is the greater Joseph. And what happened with Jesus' life? Well, you know what happened with Jesus. He became a sacrifice for the sins of many. What happened in Joseph's life? So here he is, right? He's the prime minister, and here come his 10 brothers. And what do they come with? They say, "Here, we got silver for you. We want to buy our salvation. We need bread to eat. We want to buy it. We got a handful of money and a heart full of lies." Because even in that moment, they didn't tell the truth. You know what Joseph did? He saved them. He saved them anyway. They came to him with a handful of money and a heart full of lies. I want you to think about what is your money today. Your money might be things like, well, I try to live a good life. No, can't be good enough. Your money might be, oh, I'm going to read the Bible every day and that'll make me right with God. It doesn't make you right with God. It's a good thing to do. It doesn't make you right with God. I'm going to go to church every time that I'm going to say Mass. I'm going to pray the Rosary. I'm going to, all these things. Not nice things, but they don't make you right with God. You want to be right with God? You come to God and you say, I'm helpless. I need to be saved. and I don't have anything to save myself. He wants to do that. And you know what he has in store for you? I don't know if you noticed this. 2 times in the story, 2 times, Joseph has what he's wearing stripped off of him. Do you remember that really, really awesome North Face jacket that his dad gave him? His brothers tear it off of him. And then he's a servant in Potiphar's household. As a servant in Potiphar's household, remember that hussy, that cougar, grabs his jacket and he spins out of it. He gets stripped twice of what he's wearing. Do you know why he had to be stripped? Do you notice what happened? What happened with Pharaoh when he comes before Pharaoh? Pharaoh took off what he was wearing anyway and gave him beautiful silk robes and that signet ring and a chain around his neck. God is trying to strip away things in your life because he has something better for you. And that something better that he has is Jesus. Paul talks about clothe yourself with Jesus. It's okay to let God strip away those things that you think you've got to have. It's okay to let them go because God has something better. Look, here's what happened to Joseph. His life took an unanticipated path, right? A path you would never map out in a million years. But his life took it, and what happened? He was able to influence a king of the most powerful country in the world. He was able to reconcile his family, and he was able to save a nation. Only question is, what will God do for you? What is God going to do for you? When you say, all right, God, take me on the path you want. I'm going to do what I'm designed to do. Wherever I'm deposited, I can't wait to see how you're photobombing my life. I don't understand it right now as I sit in Mercy Life on Fat Tuesday, and I've got a walker or a wheelchair. I'd rather not be in it, but God, I'm going to trust you. You're going to show me one day how you've used me, and I'm going to see it. I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray I'm going to love. I'm going to share, and I'm just going to be used. Who knows what will happen? Who knows? All right, let's pray.